Hey gamers, Maniac here with GameAccess.net talking about a video that I've been kicking around for a while. I love theme parks. I grew up, going to theme parks like Disney World or Six Flags. And I've been kind of bummed out for the fact that I haven't been able to go to a theme park in quite a while. Because to me, that feels like a space where a video game would be, you can look at it on a TV, or a movie would be like you could look at it on a screen. For a theme park, the screen comes to you. You're inside the screen now. And that to me is the magic of what theme parks have always been like. Whether it's going to visit, Gotham City and, riding on a roller coaster coming out of the Batcave, or more recently, of course, going to Harry Potter's, school and meeting him and his classmates, or riding on the Millennium Falcon and flying through, the Star Wars universe, or any of that stuff. And I'm sure you'll have your own ideas about what a theme park, what being in, or getting on a boat with Jaws is actually in the water with you, or getting on a cable car where King Kong is attacking the city, or millions of ideas, right? And obviously, we've had a lot of time to talk about that, and I've had a lot of time to think about this because, of course, unfortunately, all the theme parks are closed for right now. Now, they will be reopening, but it's been a shame, and I'm sure it's probably delayed a lot of people's plans to visit the theme parks. Now, there's a guy online named David Ganssel who calls himself Doggans, and he has a series as of recently called Armchair Engineering, where he talks about his blue sky ideas, his multi-billion-dollar ideas for taking a property or taking like a movie or a film idea and just giving what his excellent ideas, what his, like, if he had infinite money and infinite, and anything was possible, what would he build, or what would he ask to be built? And I thought, I had my own ideas. I think I have my own ideas that I like to throw, and I essentially like to throw my hat in, if I may. And with the time that I have, all the free time that I have, I've drawn up a lot of ideas actually that I feel would be good ideas, I think. Now, you read the topic, you know that I'm going to be talking about my ideas for a Pokemon land in a theme park. This is not an idea, or these are not ideas for what would be essentially a theme park specifically meant for Pokemon. The intention, of course, is that this would be the ideas that I would do, or I would plan if I was to create a Pokemon Land inside an already existing larger theme park. So imagine, like, tomorrow, this would be like something that'd be relatively the size of, let's say, Fantasyland in Disneyland, or Jurassic Park in Islands of Adventure. Something along those lines, basically. So it would be an area of a park, and there would be other areas in the park, and this would just be one section of the park. And you basically come in, you explore all the stuff that the land had, and then you'd move to the next land. And that would be the idea that's the idea that I kind of went behind. Now, if you're going to say, well, I think Pokemon deserves its own park, I like you, but that is not what this video is going to be about. But please, if you really want to hear me talk about such an idea, by all means, post a comment below, and I'll try redrawing all of these ideas and see if I can bring them to fruition. And so these are just some of my ideas, basically. Now, first off, my basic idea for creating a Pokemon-themed land in a theme park would basically start with, we would have to recreate, in real life, a town or city in the Pokemon game. So basically, as you're coming into this land, you're going to see the trees, you're going to hear the Pokemon, battle music, or the walking music, and the speakers hitting through the backgrounds. But you'd actually see the real buildings. Particularly, they would build, or they're going to build full site at least 3 major buildings, because there are 3 major buildings in every town at least. One, a Pokemon Center. Every major town has one. In the games, we're going to build ourselves a Pokemon Center. 2, a Pokemart. We're going to build one of those. And 3, a Pokemon Gym. And I'm not even getting to the best part. Now, there can be some discussion. You can post your ideas below about what you would prefer. And please, I do want to hear your ideas. So please just post a comment below with what you think would be a better option. I'm not married to either of them. In either case, what I was thinking of is we would basically either take a city or a town that already existed in Pokemon. And a couple of ideas that I certainly had on the top of my list were either Viridian City from Kanto, or possibly I think it was Saffron City, the city that has the city in Kanto that has the what's the word the Safari Zone. I believe it was I don't think it was Saffron City, but the city, basically the city that had the Safari Zone. Actually, I thought that those would be the two top tier. Or if you guys would prefer, you can create an entirely new city from scratch. Say that it's part of the Pokemon, universe in a region that hasn't been discovered yet in either a game or whatever, and we just create our own OC Pokemon City. It could be done. I'm not married to either idea. Post a comment below with what you think would be a better idea, but I'm kind of married to Viridian City idea for a couple of reasons, and I'm married to the Safari Zone for another reasons, which I'm going to talk about in just a few minutes. Now, like I said, there would be 3 buildings at least in there that you would be able to go into and out of. Particularly, there would be a full-size gym, a Pokemon gym. There would be a full-sized Pokemon Center. A real-life Pokemon Center would be built, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And there would be a real-life Pokemon Pokemart. Now, the ideas for, I don't think we would need a Pokemart specifically, because nowadays in the more recent games, the Pokemon Center and the Pokemart are kind of integrated into themselves, particularly with the more recent generations, but it could certainly be done. They could build a Pokemart for things like, buying sodas or some, specific, snacks, that kind of thing. I think that would actually be a pretty cool idea. The Pokemon Center itself would essentially start off with, or at least we could use the baseline for it. From the exterior, would basically match up a Pokemon Center from the games. But what we could do with it is that the interior would match up with the Pokemon Centers that exist currently throughout Japan. Now, there has not been a Pokemon Center that has existed in the United States in probably around 15 years. This would, at least in my opinion, be the first to, the only Pokemon Center in the entire country of the United States. So that would be pretty awesome. That alone would probably get tourists, because again, there are no other Pokemon Centers here in this country. And no, the vending machines in some of the malls in Seattle do not count. But that would be a perfect place to sell merchandise, all different types of merchandise. That would basically I'm sure that would be like the first thing that a place like Disney or Universal would want to build would be, we want to sell merchandise. I mean, just think about, what's available out there already for Pokemon merchandise. Let's take out the video games, because most people aren't probably going to want to buy video games while on vacation, and maybe a few of them won't want to buy movies while on vacation. But what are they going to want to buy? They're going to want to buy plush dolls. They're going to want to buy T-shirts. They're going to want to buy calendars, organizers, pens, pencils, erasers, all that kind of stuff. Maybe a few people might want to buy hats or costume ideas and stuff like that. All of those are great ideas, and that's the thing. In the United States, it's hard to get your hands on actual high-quality Pokemon merchandise because there are no Pokemon Centers here. And I've done a poll, throughout, I've polled Pokemon fans out there, and I've asked them flat out. I can think of at least 3 manufacturers of Pokemon Pokemon plushes, of high-quality Pokemon plushes, not knockoffs, but official Pokemon plushes out there. One is Tomy. The other is Build-A-Bear, and this is an example. This little snubble is a Build-A-Bear. And third would be the Pokemon Center itself. And I said I polled these fans, and I said, who do you think, or out of all of these manufacturers, who do you want to buy the goods from the most? And every single one of them said Pokemon Center. That's considered to be, at least right now, the number one. And by the way, I like the Build-A-Bears. I bought a bunch of these for my girlfriend. I'm sorry, my fiance. She loves them. But, because, but let's not, so my point is that it's just Pokemon Centers themselves are just way too popular, and they're too heavily requested by collectors to ignore them completely. So that would certainly be, the Pokemon Center goods, or having a Pokemon Center goods, would basically be the best idea, I would think. Now, obviously, you would theme the interior of this store as a Pokemon Center. So you would have the cash register people, or the retail workers dressed up as Nurse Joy, and behind them, behind the register, could be a full-sized robotic Chansey with a full-sized, essentially Pokeball pod where you could actually see the trainers, repairing Pokemon, or healing Pokemon in an incubation chamber and stuff like that. Of course, you wouldn't be able to reach out and touch it because it'd be behind the register, but that would essentially be like the best place that you could actually put it. So you can come in, you could buy some stuff there, and you can have Nurse Joy ring you up. It would be just I would want to go check that out. So that was my idea for how to sell merchandise. Now, as to sell food, obviously you're going to have food sold there as well. Tokyo already has a Pokemon Cafe. It's the only one in the world as far as I know. I believe it was located in the Pokemon Center DX in Tokyo, or the Tokyo DX store. It's an actual full-size Pokemon Cafe. It reminds me of like a mix between Starbucks, a Japanese tea house, and with Pokemon plushes and Pokemon merchandise and Pokemon-shaped foods and Pokemon-themed foods and Pokemon-themed drinks, with exclusive merchandise. Like if you buy like this, you get to keep the cup or something like that, and your drink will look like a Ghastly, or your drink can look like a Pikachu, or just bring that over to the United States. I've seen people that live in the United States literally take trips all the way out to Tokyo and Japan just so they could patronize these stores. Why not bring them here? They'd make a killing. So for food and for basically the problems of having food and refreshments, because you can come in for a drink or a cup of coffee. Imagine a cup of coffee in the latte foam, and there was a Pikachu stencil or any of the 151 stencil in the latte foam itself. Now, would you drink that? That's entirely your decision, but the Pokemon company itself has already solved the idea of food and beverages. Just bring it over to the United States. It would make a killing. So that's my idea for food. Now, what about entertainment? We're going to be talking about shows, and we're going to be talking about rides. And this is part of the reason why I would say let's relegate this to just one particular land. I don't want to have, at least not unless we did a full park. If we did a full park, we'd have to do spinny rides and carnival rides and stuff like that. Like, I immediately had some ideas for maybe having a Pokemon-themed carousel, or a large Ferris wheel with the Pokemon characters on it, or perhaps like a spinning lifting ride similar to like Dumbo the Flying Elephant, but themed with various Pokemon. And I had all those ideas, and I said no. Obviously, those were already done for the Poke Park when it was opened in Japan. However, Pokemon, I think people are going to definitely want more. Those are not things that you would see in the Pokemon game itself, with the exception of the Ferris wheel, because I know for a fact that there was a Ferris wheel in one of the Pokemon games that you could actually go on, and there was a story beat there. But that aside, like, there would not be, or at least I haven't seen in the games, like, spinning Pokemon-themed carousels and stuff like that. So if we did a full park that was Pokemon, then obviously we'd have to include stuff like that. But if it was just a land, we don't need it. Let's push that out. But what do we have instead? Now, I'm going to just say this right now. My mantra was no VR and no screens. And when I say no screens, that includes no plasma TVs, no flat panel TVs, no projection, no screen projection, no theater projection effects. All of the effects and all of these things will either be environmental, meaning planted trees, animatronic, or robot, whichever you prefer to call it, either full size or to scale or forced perspective, or conventional effects, and that would include fire and fireworks. Also, sound effects, that sort of thing, basically would of course also be used. But so that would be something that would be artificial. But then again, we're trying to replicate things that exist in a video game environment into the real world. So we're going to have to use sound effects and stuff like that. But there will be no screens, with the exception of anything that was in the Pokemon Center, like if the Pokemon Center is showing like a preview of something or some background, videos for while you're shopping of like Pokemon being healed or Pokemon stats or stuff like that, or an interactive Pokedex. Pokemon Center, let's say, they've already got that in the Pokemon Centers across the country. They've had it in the Pokemon Center that was here for a brief period of time. We could, that I'll forgive. And also, we will also forgive screens for, obviously, the safety videos. Because we're going to have rides, and we're going to have shows. And by law, there are going to have to be safety videos for those rides and shows. Now, what is going to be on those, safety videos is probably going to be determined by the law. So I don't want to, so I'm going to have to be, very specific about that. But that would be the only place that you would actually see screens in the actual park, and there would be no VR and no AR. We're gonna do this all old school, and because you want to know why? Because that's what Pokemon deserves. And I remember that when I was a kid, I wish I could have seen a full-size robot Charizard breathing fire, and boy, are we gonna see that in this park if I get my way and they build this. So I'm going to talk about the show first. Now, I said before that I was going to have a full-size Pokemon gym available. That's going to be where I would stick the theater show. The theater show would be set up very similar to like a stadium seating, kind of similar to how if you've ever been to a high school or a college game or something that wasn't in a full-sized arena, what we would set up was you would set up a flat surface with the trainer gym. Basically people would be shuffled in, and there would be a large floor space which we would not be allowed to go on. We'd be shuffled into the seats. There'd basically be a bleacher settings, like a high-rise bleacher settings, along one side of the building, and the crowds would basically funnel into these bleachers, essentially basically saying that you're not here to challenge the gym leader, because, of course, you don't have the necessary prerequisites to do such a thing, but you would be here to basically observe the incoming battles. And, oh, boy, there's going to be some, we have the best gym leader in the entire region here, and he's going to be awesome, and he's got some great Pokemon, and we've heard stories about this great Pokemon trainer that's an up-and-comer that might be coming in today. That would be the storyline, basically. We'd witness an actual gym battle with conventional effects. So basically the crowd would be brought in. We'd all take our seats at the in the stadium seating. The gym leader would come out. She would basically be the MC. I'm not married to basically the idea of having an OC or bringing in a recognizable character, but I will say right now, Giovanni, if you're going to do a character that's actually previously existed as a gym leader, I want to see Giovanni fight. I'm going to say that right now. Now, if you have a better idea and you want to do an OC or you want to see somebody else's fight, I'm going to tell you right now, you better have a persuasive argument, because what I want to see in that gym is I want to see Giovanni bring out a giant animatronic Mewtwo, and I want to see him use it up against some trainers. So what would my idea be for this particular show would be a full-on series of Pokemon battles. Essentially, we'd be establishing Giovanni as an awesome badass, which he is. He'd have a robotic his robotic oh God, my brain is not working right now. Of course, he'd have a full-size robotic Mewtwo. He'd have his pet Persian at his side, of course. He'd have his other Pokemon that were part of his thing. I believe he had a Nidoqueen or a Nidoking with him, a Rhydon, that sort of thing, basically. And he'd use those particular Pokemon, and we'd actually get to see those Pokemon fighting. So what would happen would be is once he's set up what he's going to be doing, what his plans are, and of course it'd be something nefarious. He's Giovanni. Of course we'd be seeing him. He'd admit to be like, they're going to be coming in, and they don't know that I'm going to, after I knock them out, I'm going to steal their Pokeballs, or I'm going to take their Pokeballs from them, or I'm going to take certain things from their Pokeballs. Insert reference to the Pokemon musical here. But bigger, because what we're going to see is we're going to see a hero come in. Eventually, what's going to happen is that we're going to see a couple of Pokemon trainers come in, and they're going to bring out their Pokemon, and they're going to lose. So we're going to see a few trainers lose, just to set up how badass Giovanni is. Maybe somebody might get to the final. Maybe somebody might defeat one or two of Giovanni's, Pokemon, but finally, before we get to the hero, we're gonna get this big reveal of like a giant Mecha Mewtwo or a Shadow Mewtwo or something, and he is just gonna wail away with bass effects that's gonna rumble the entire stadium when he fires off Psychic and just bring all the other Pokemon to his knees until we get to the final hero. Could be an OC, could be Ash, could be Red. I'd want to see Red fight, because of course we all know that both Red and both Gary Blue or in Japan Green. We both know that in the canon both Red and Blue defeated Giovanni, because they wouldn't have been able to get to the Elite Four without that. So maybe we would see one or the other basically take him on. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. But when Red comes out there, or whoever comes out there, our hero comes out there, he's going to wipe the floor. Probably with like a giant, if it was mine, I would say have him finish off with a giant flaming Charizard, and he's going to say, Charizard, flamethrower. And this giant Charizard is going to be brought up onto the stage somehow, probably through a magician's trick or sleight of hand or something. Maybe they'll do like a spark or a flash on the screen, a flash effect, like a strobe effect or something, and then they'll raise a giant Charizard out of the floor, and then this Charizard will actually have a flamethrower built into its mouth, and it'll throw, it'll just basically throw flame, which is why the audience will be off in the side, off the mat, and the actors will be off, in safe areas also, but we'll be able to hear them, of course, and defeat Giovanni and get the badge, and we'll all applaud the hero, and that would basically be the show. That's not the ride. That's not the idea that I actually had for the ride. That would just be for a show. For the ride, we're going to bring back the Safari Zone. That was my idea. Or at the very least, for those of you who might be familiar with Pokemon Snap. Yes, I'm looking at you, XJerry64XX. Who told me flat out he's been waiting for a Pokemon Snap 2 for probably 1 or 2 decades, and boy, the Wii U and probably the Switch also would definitely be able to do it. Certainly, it has the hardware. What are we going to do for this particular ride? Well, for anybody who's played Pokemon Snap, I don't know about the canonicity of it, but in my mind, Pokemon Snap is canon. We're going to be brought in, we're going to be told that we're going to be entering a Pokemon protected Pokemon area. We are not going to see trainers there at all. These are going to be Pokemon in their natural environment. Essentially, what's going to be happening is that we'll either be brought into, or that our travel companions or the ride itself is going to be going outside of the confines of the town, and we'll be venturing into the wild, unexplored Pokemon, wild Pokemon areas, or a wild area, whichever you prefer to call it. And essentially speaking, we're going to see Pokemon in their natural habitats. And I had all these great ideas for, we could swap it up. Like, we enter the area and we'd see Pokemon. I was thinking this was going to be like a river raft ride, actually. I think it could work really well as like a log flume type ride or something, kind of similar to like Pirates of the Caribbean or the Avatar's Navi River Passage or something. So we'd see an environment like, we'd start off in like a forest environment, and we'd see Pidgeots and Pidgeotos, and we'd see bug Pokemon lowering themselves down from the, from the trees, or Kakunas, and probably we'll see a Pikachu around there somewhere, of course we would. And they'd either rise or lower, or they'd make sound effects, or they'd move, or they'd smile, and they would, we'd hear them. Maybe if Pikachu's out there, we'll see like a spark or something like that firing out. That sort of thing. And then we'd move to a different environment, like a cave. We'd go into a cave, and we'd see Zubats, flying around, or we'd see the shadows of Zubats. No screens. We'd see actual we do effects or stuff like that. Like obviously light effects or shadow effects or something would certainly work. Projection effects would only be used for like if a Pokemon was to actually use an effect, but we'd see full-sized or forced perspective animatronics moving around in the caves. And then we'd move to the jungles or something like that, and we'd see all kinds of different Pokemon there. It'll finally culminate with a legendary reveal, perhaps even a legendary battle. Maybe we'd see a couple of legendaries going at it, whether it be the legendary birds fighting with each other, or we'd see Mew floating around, in the background or something like that. That would be freaking awesome. Or something along those lines. Like, obviously, I would say don't show Mewtwo, because Mewtwo wouldn't be hanging out in the wild. He'd be more likely to show up in the gym or something like that. So let's not see Mewtwo. But any of the legendary Pokemon that we could see in the wild, whether it be maybe the legendary dogs from Generation 2, like Suicune or something along those lines, or that would be fine. We could certainly see those. Anything that would basically be out in the wild in an environment that we'd recognize. Or maybe we can move into like a spooky area and we'd see ghost-type Pokemon. Yeah. And then we'd come back, and of course the people in the queue, that would be the ride operators, would be dressed up as if they were Pokemon Rangers or Safari Wardens or something like that. So everybody would be wearing costumes. As for the employees in the park themselves, I already mentioned that there would be like, a Nurse Joy or something dressed up as, for anybody that would be working retail at the Pokemon Center. I would definitely want a Nurse Joy, you know, a person dressed up as Nurse Joy. But for any employees that were working in the area itself, have them dress up as OCs, you know, their own little Pokemon characters, either based on their own original Pokemon character that they've created themselves, or have them dressed up as like a trainer archetype, like have a trainer dressed up as a beauty trainer or a youngster trainer or something, or a last trainer or a Poke Kid, you know, something along those lines. Have the employees dress up as characters, as if this world is actually inhabited by real Pokemon trainers. Now, I don't want to see Pokemon trainers on the ride itself, like not especially once the ride starts. Obviously, getting onto the ride and getting off of the ride, obviously we'll see, you know, people there. But in the environment itself, I don't want to see any trainers out in the wild. I just want to see the Pokemon animatronics and what they can basically do when Pokemon are interacting with each other. But for when you're walking around the land, obviously we can see, you know, obviously we can see Pokemon, you know, Pokemon trainers, of course. And a little nod from Star Wars The Galaxy's Edge, basically. Everything has to exist in universe. So if they see you whip out your cell phone, they're going to call it Pokegear. Or if they see you pull out a Nintendo 3DS or a Nintendo Switch, they're going to refer to it as your Pokédex or something like that. That would be really cool. That would be a nice in-universe way of basically of doing this. So those are some of my ideas. Obviously, like I said, maybe I would imagine probably maybe another ride would have to be created. Maybe like you could do like a Pokemon Haunted Mansion or something for like Halloween. And then you could go through like a Pokemon Mansion and interact with Ghastly's or see Ghastly's attack or something along those lines. Maybe we could do that for like a Halloween event or something, but that would certainly be more akin to a walkthrough attraction as opposed to an actual ride, like something you'd be in a vehicle for. And I wouldn't consider it a show, but for a walkthrough attraction, maybe for Halloween, open up a Pokemon Mansion, have the ghost Pokemon coming out and scaring you. Those would just be my ideas. If you think that these ideas merit a land, if you like my ideas, please post a comment below. Until next time, guys, my name is Trainer Maniac. Take care. Over and out.